Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Fright-A-Thon, the horror marathon on my channel here that we're doing today. This is the video version. You can have the written version on that#show.com, but if you're into a video, here we go. There's only been 2 movies in my lifetime that have given me nightmares enough that I've actually woken up in the middle of the night sweating, sort of scared. And 2 of them happen to be on this list. The other 3 haven't given me nightmares, but they've given me pause about thinking about horror movies when you're trying to go to sleep, particularly number 1. Number 1 has given me nightmares as well, but these are the 5 most terrifying films ever. And these are my 5 films, they're not your 5 films. So if you sit there and you laugh at these movies and you think, oh, haha, what a little baby he is, that's fine. Let me know what your 5 movies are in the comments, and let's get to number 5 here. It is A Quiet Place from 2018, and just the premise of A Quiet Place is really the most terrifying part of the film, where there's only like 25 lines of dialogue in the entire movie. A lot of it is through ASL or American Sign Language. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt carry the film here, and it is just truly terrifying to have a film where you're basically just stuck in this environment where you can't make any noise. You make one noise, you're dead. And it's sort of like those horror movies where you're, oh, the killer's in the house. If you hear the floorboard creaking, they're going to come after you. But this time it's really, if you make any noise, you and your family are dead. This one is a truly terrifying experience. I know there's been some sort of scientific experiments where they've hooked up heart monitors to people and looked at what was the scariest film or the film that raised your heartbeat the most. A Quiet Place was among those movies that raises heartbeat levels because of the tension that builds up in this movie. It is absolutely terrifying and just a great one. The sequel is a little less good in my opinion than the first one, but they're both very good movies and very good examples of modern horror that we can all sort of look to in this era where people seem to complain about remakes and sequels too much. Well, guess what? There's these original horror movies we have right here. Number 4 on the list is, of course, Tobe Hooper's seminal classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. This is the originator of the slasher genre. It's the originator of a lot of things in horror here. And Tobe Hooper, it's just such a grimy, just filthy, dirty looking movie, but it is so realistic in some of the depictions of the violence on hand. And it's also just not, though, where you have these scenes like when Leatherface grabs the girl and puts her up on the meat hook. In today's horror, you'd see that meat hook go straight through her, there'd be blood spurting everywhere. But in 1974, you couldn't really do that, and they probably didn't have the budget to get all the blood, because this is just an ultra low budget movie that just does the job perfectly, and it shows you don't need a huge budget. You just need a camera, you need some good actors, you need a good story, and you need, of course, a great villain in Leatherface. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is unsettling. It's just very, it gets under your skin, especially if you watch it. I watched it back to back with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the sequel, and it was a hell of a ride to go through both of those movies, where they're both very different. The sequel is a modern day horror movie with a lot of blood and guts and action and all of that. The first movie, not so much. There is action. There's also just fantastic chase sequences that go on and on and on and on, but not in a way where you're like, oh, please, God, get this over with, where you're so engrossed with what's going on screen that you don't notice that it's flying by. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre does that to probably the best effect of any horror movie out there, where it just combined with the low budget and the story and the setting and everything that went into the filmmaking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it deserves a spot on this list of being one of the most terrifying movies ever made. If you haven't seen this one recently, before you pass judgment, go back and watch it again, watch it with the lights off, do whatever you're going to do, because if you haven't seen it in a while, you need to, because to truly appreciate it, you need to see it recently, because otherwise you're going to just remember, oh, it's Leatherface, who cares, it's not that scary. It is. It's unsettling, it's frightening, and it goes deep into what makes us so scary, and that is our own humanity. Number 3, we have a movie on a lot of people's lists here that's going to be among the most terrifying that they've ever seen. It is The Exorcist from 1973. The Exorcist was one of the movies that gave me nightmares. I'll give you the other one when we hit number 1, but it gave me nightmares. I was forced to watch it as like a 10-year-old, and to sort of understand how terrifying these movies are that you're watching here, that you might watch, or that you think is terrifying, or anything like that, you have to go back to before you were a jaded horror fan, basically. Before you've seen everything, before you've seen Eli Roth tearing people's bodies apart, before you've seen any scene of gore, before you've seen Terrifier rip somebody in half down from their groin, before you've seen all of that, you have to think back to a time where you were, you know, an adolescent or a teenager, a kid or whatever, and you're watching these horror movies for the first time, and you're seeing them. And you have to get into that mindset when you're rewatching them to see how scary they are or whatever, because I know there's going to be people out there that go, ha 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 ha, The Exorcist is so funny, she's puking up like split pea soup. But you have to remember, watching it as either a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, whatever you were when you first saw The Exorcist, how truly terrifying this movie is, and just with the lengths that it goes to, because this is one of the better examples of, like, you know, an academic horror movie out there. You know, you've got like Dracula and you've got Psycho, but The Exorcist really is like that film school nerd horror movie, because it hits both sort of poles that you have, where you have the horror fan that loves gore and everything and loves the devil, loves Satan, who gives a crap, and then you have the film school nerd who's like, oh my god, the shots are so wonderful, look at that. And you get both of those and you smash together and you get The Exorcist, and you combine that with a true sense of dread throughout the whole entire film that just permeates as you're watching. It just gets more and more and more unsettling as the exorcism goes on, and then it finally just ends in this crescendo where there's just this huge thing going on, and then you have the ending of the film. And it combines that with one of the most haunting songs that's used for a horror movie that wasn't made for a horror movie, in Tubular Bells, and then great performances throughout, and probably one of the best movie posters of all time. My favorite movie poster. You know what? I'm going to show it to you. Here is the poster for The Exorcist. It is absolutely perfect. You can't get any better than this. I want to get this framed and put it on my wall. The Exorcist is terrifying. Another one that, if you haven't seen it recently, go back and watch it, because it is really, truly scary. These next two might not be number 1 and 2 on a lot of people's lists, but they go into what really is scary about everything. What's the scariest thing that you can think of? What's the scariest thing? And it all comes from up here. It all comes from humanity, from human beings themselves. And number 2 on this list is the TV movie Threads from 1986. I was suggested this by a friend on Twitter because they said it was the most realistic depiction of nuclear war, nuclear fallout, nuclear winter put on screen, and they were completely right. It is the most accurate depiction of nuclear war, nuclear winter, whatever, because the imagery on display here is not necessarily the most terrifying thing in the movie. There are scenes of true terror or horror, but there's nothing that really, you know, it's not people's arms getting ripped off or, you know, demons coming to life or anything like that. It is what's the scariest thing, and that is human beings. It is human beings with one another. It's the reason why I like The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead, if it was just them killing zombies the entire time, it would be cool, but it wouldn't be what The Walking Dead is. The Walking Dead is what it is because of the human versus human conflict, the human element of it. Threads is the exact same way. Nuclear bombs and everything are scary, but what's the scariest thing after that is humans going up against one another for a slice of bread, for food, for shelter, and it just brings out the absolute worst in humanity. And that's why Threads is truly terrifying, because it shows you, it pulls a mirror up and it says, here you go, here's what we are. We're all fighting over that slice of bread or whatever, and then it throws it away and ends in a truly horrifying fashion. You just have to watch it to see it for yourself, because if you haven't seen Threads, it's really upsetting. It shakes you to your core. Number 1 is a movie I will never watch ever again. I will not watch this movie under any circumstances. I don't care if I'm not watching it. Number 1 is Fire in the Sky, and this movie might not connect a little bit to that sort of humanity is the scariest thing out there, but it really, if Threads and The Exorcist are lighter on the, you know, the frights and all of that, but more on the psychological horror, Fire in the Sky is just the scene where they're abducted and tested on and everything is literally something out of a nightmare. It looks like a nightmare. It's shot like a nightmare. The whole thing is a nightmare. And I had horrific nightmares after watching this. This is an adult, not as a kid. The Exorcist was as a kid, at least. Fire in the Sky, I had an extension or something like that of the sort of abduction experimentation scene done in this movie. And it was truly, truly terrifying. I woke up, I was sweating and everything. It was just horrible. And this movie, I will never watch it ever again. I've watched it once. It's a great movie. If you love aliens, abduction stories and stuff like that, you love really great gore effects or really great effects of aliens. It's from 1993. It is great. Scream Factory has a new release of it that's pretty damn good. It has a really nice transfer. I will not be buying it. I will not be watching it, but you should, to judge if you think it is one of the most terrifying movies ever made. That'll do it for my top 5 list for Fright-A-Thon. What do you think is the most terrifying movie ever made? Make sure to subscribe and do all that other YouTube stuff, because we are doing a giveaway. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will be giving away, wait for it, the Halloween complete collection from Scream Factory, this little guy right here. I will be giving this away to one lucky subscriber that also fulfills a little more on the video when we get to that point. I will also be giving away a copy of the NECA Thing figure from San Diego Comic-Con 2022. Yes, you can get one of these, and you don't have to go on eBay to get it. You just have to subscribe to my channel and wait around for a little bit. And then I will also be giving away a standard version of Arrow Video's The Thing release, so that you can get in on that, because that's my favorite movie of all time, and you should have it too. But that'll do it for this list. That'll do it for Fright-A-Thon for today. But remember, Fright-A-Thon is all month long, all September, all October for horror goodness, and we'll be doing some more music content as well. But make sure to check back to the channel, and thank you for watching, and I will see you real soon.